Black-Eyed Kids Stories. Possible BEK encounter in Ohio. Abraham's Beach. 29 days. This happened years ago. I was only 8 years old at the time, visiting family in Beaver Creek, Ohio, a suburb of Dayton. It was about dusk outside and I was riding a small motorized bike around the street, which was a cul-de-sac. No one else was in their front yards or on the sidewalk. It was just me in the street with my bike. I was making the last trip around, going back to the house, when I saw 2 kids walking, holding hands, that I didn't see just a minute ago when I had looked. I came up on them fast and I slowed down when I passed them to get a better look at them. They looked so off. Their skin was white, almost gray. They were wearing tattered black clothing that looked like Halloween costumes. It was July when I was there. They both stared at me and I stared back. My heart was beating so fast. One of them reached out for me to say wait, but I sped away as fast as I could. I made it back to the house and ran upstairs through the garage. My cousin was waiting for me upstairs, who is older than me. I closed the blinds in the room, sat on the windowsill, and peeked through the blinds. She asked me what I was doing and I explained. She got a little quiet. I kept looking for another 5 minutes, waiting for them to pass by the house. Nothing. I didn't see them walk away, go in any houses, or walk by the house ever. It's like they vanished or ran off in the 1 minute it took me to get from the garage to the room. I still don't really know how to explain this. I'm not sure if it was BEK, weird kids, or something else. But either way, I'll never forget the feeling of dread that came upon me when I saw their faces. Black-Eyed Kids Stories. Little girl with huge eyes. Sick girl. 7 days. I used to have a job as a cashier in a bakery. When someone came in through the door, a bell would go off. One day I was back in the kitchen and heard the bell, so I made my way up to the front. As soon as I turned the corner to greet who just walked in, I immediately made direct eye contact with a little girl, who was about to go into the bathroom. Within the split second I saw her, I stopped dead in my tracks and gasped. This little girl had the hugest eyes I had ever seen. It honestly scared me. I can't exaggerate enough just how big this girl's eyes were. I could not see the whites of her eyes. It's not just that they were black or demonic looking, they were so large they didn't look like human eyes. Like I said, this all happened in a split second. The moment I turned the corner to see her and her unnaturally large eyes, she was pulled into the bathroom. Working in costumer service, you see a lot of weird stuff, so right after that happened I kinda just froze and thought, well, that was weird, yeah, no, maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. I figured I'd just get a better look when she came out of the bathroom. Right? Well, when she came back out, she had on sunglasses. The type that were reflective that you couldn't see through. The little girl was accompanied, but who I assume was her mother and grandma. Nothing out of the ordinary happened. I took their orders like normal but couldn't help but stare at this little girl. I needed answers, so being the nosy person I am, I said, I like your sunglasses, hoping she would take them off or something. She said thanks in a cutesy little voice, turns to her mother and whispers, can I show her my eyes? At this point I was doing everything in my power not to lose my stuff. The woman looked down at her and said in a firm, serious tone, no. I just rang them up and pretended like I didn't hear that. After they left I started Googling large-eyed children and couldn't find a single image close to what I had just saw. It was one of the strangest encounters I have ever had. Black-Eyed Kids Stories. BEK in dreams? Dirty Finch. 86 days. Up until about 2 years ago I would have occasional nightmares with a recurring entity in the form of a little girl with black eyes, long black hair, and extremely pale skin. Usually she would ask me for help and the dream would end immediately after. I could never remember her voice specifically after waking up until the last nightmare she was in. She had assumed the voice of my girlfriend's niece, and this time the dream was set in my house. Even though I knew it wasn't my girlfriend's niece, I still somehow believed it was, but I told it that I couldn't help and it needed to go ask her dad. It got upset and I woke up as it lashed out at me, and I haven't had anything like this come up since then. Has anyone else had a BEK come up in dreams? Black-eyed adult. Forgiveness 134 days. Me and my sister went on a road trip a few months ago and we had recently heard about black-eyed kids. So we read stories for about 3 hours, which really freaked us out. The next day I was with a few of my friends. We drove down an alley to get to a parking garage. Standing in the center of the alley was an old lady with white hair wearing old-fashioned white clothes. Even from a distance I could see she was staring at me. As we got closer I noticed her eyes were completely black. I started shaking and I didn't really believe what I was seeing. I really thought that I was fabricating it in my mind because of having read about it just the night before. So I asked my friend in a shaky voice, does that lady have black eyes? And he replied, dude, holy smokes, what the freak, man. And his voice instantly became shaky. We just turned around and went in another entrance to the parking garage. When we walked by the alley again a minute later she was standing in the same spot. Every moment she was in sight, she was staring into my eyes. It was extremely unsettling, but nothing came of it. My friend wasn't just messing with me. We both saw her piercing black eyes. Glad I didn't have to talk to her. I was shaky enough as it was, haha. She looked to be around 70 years old though. Black-eyed senior citizen? Really odd experience. Black-eyed kids stories. A BEK encounter during a bike ride. Stormy 142 days. This happened about a month ago. I was riding my bike back to my house after going to Dunkin' Donuts. A normal day, as I would think. I was going past and entering into a neighborhood. I was driving relatively slow due to the fact I was going up a hill in the road. I saw a girl walking into the neighborhood. Though she looked strange, nothing very different though. She was pale and had black hair. I kept staring at her to make sure she wouldn't walk towards me. At the second I was about to turn my head, she jerked her head around to face me. At that moment my heart sank to my feet. Her eyes were pitch black and her nose was weirdly pointy. She smiled very widely at me, then started to walk towards me, her smile fading as she got closer. I realized what was happening and basically biked away as fast as I could. I turned my head to make sure she wasn't following me, but all she did was turn back into the neighborhood. So now I use a different way to go to Dunkin' Donuts. The reason? I'm terrified she'll return unexpectedly. At that time I knew about black-eyed children. I knew what happened if she or he came near me. So kids, be careful when biking near neighborhoods. Black-eyed kids stories. My partner and I had a BEK experience, and we are suffering. Planetary Virgo. 1 year. This happened a couple of weeks ago when myself and 2 of my partners, who will be referred to as K and W, decided on visiting this 150-year-old graveyard at night. Now, I am a sensitive /empath /indigo whatever. W and K are blocked off energy-wise. The walk in the cemetery was dark and peaceful, at first. We wandered a while and read some stones, and eventually at a crossroads K noticed something and walked off. He came back, and whispered, "There's someone over there, I'm gonna check it out." The moment he walked away again, I felt eyes watching me from everywhere and an overwhelming primal sense of fear. I froze, and W strained to see what K was looking at. About 7 or 8 minutes later, K was back and looking spooked. He told me that there was a stone white figure, darting through the trees. I was asked if I wanted to leave, and I said no. So we stayed, and wandered a little more. After a little longer, we came across this huge marble mausoleum, the door of which was made of glass and you could see through it. Getting closer set me off. Everything felt wrong and the dread was back. There was an extremely prickly feeling all over my skin. K touched the door and felt it too. Both K and myself saw a shadow moving around inside the mausoleum as we stood there, and the moment he touched the door, the shadow disappeared. We ran, eventually finding a place to sit for a moment. I was completely overwhelmed and continuing to feel like we were being watched. K was really freaking out, getting dizzy and very quiet. He seemed really off, like he'd seen something I hadn't. I was asked again if I wanted to leave, and this time I said yes. We left, and the whole walk home, myself and Kay felt the dread again. That inhuman primal fear. Once we got home, W immediately fell asleep on the couch, while Kay and I began to panic. Both of us felt extremely dizzy and weak. And then knocking. It started softly, only 3. As time went on it got more and more frantic sounding. But not much harder. We couldn't shake the dread for a good 30 or so minutes. When the dread left, we were left drained mentally and physically and decided on going upstairs and attempting to get some sleep. We assured each other that if it was a BEK, that we didn't open the door, thus we are safe. At some point while watching TV to try and calm down, I got overheated and Kay opened the door to the upstairs patio and turned on the fan. That was another thing we did wrong. Around 3:20 a.m., Kay woke up and he remembers only being able to move his head around. The door had opened on its own about halfway and a child who looked about 12 with extremely messy shortish hair and face covered by a shadow was standing there, and staring. He remembers the most intense terror he's ever felt. So much that it physically hurt. He shut his eyes and held them closed until the terror passed and he fell back asleep. The house was already haunted, different story, but the activity has been kicked up a notch or 2. The cat goes nuts because of it. Since then, for both me and Kay, depression and anxiety has become much more intense than it has been in a very long time. I can't sleep at night, and neither can Kay. There has been a constant dull ringing in my ears, occasionally dread so bad it hurts will take over Kay for 20-30 minutes, and I've been having random pains in various parts of my abdomen. TVs, radios and lights turn on and off by themselves and we are both constantly feeling watched in intense fear. I can't find any sources on how to deal with or get rid of BEKs. I also practice witchcraft and nothing I've done, casting circles, salt, cleanings etc., has worked. Whatever BEKs are, whatever they want, is having effects on our physical and mental health. I feel so drained. Someone tell me what to do. Please. Thank you for watching Dreamland Orchard. Please send your true stories or suggestions to dreamlandorchard@gmail.com.